But are we really looking at a scenario here where if you were to pit now, you would basically be turning it into a 3-stop race? Is there a benefit to making that early pit stop?
I think it's too early for that. The earliest I've ever seen anyone pit to make a strategy like that work is lap 9. Lap 4 of the race just seems like you're topping off the fuel that you burnt on the pace laps. I don't think it's going to make any big difference. If you save enough fuel under this caution, it'll have the same effect.
So taking a look here, Matt Wagner is going to be your race leader. Scott Wise holding on to the second position. Zach Rinker, Mario Miranda, Chris Wilhite, your top 5. 6 through 10, Jim Brooks, AJ Musselman, J.W. Miller, James Watson, and Alexander Ball. Thinking about how that strategy game is going to play here, Patrick, you mentioned the stop at lap number 9. We're there now, and the lights are still on the iRacing safety car, so we're going to go at least one more lap here. Does it become worthwhile to try that big gamble if you're one of the drivers at the back? Even to take fuel only and try to extend that first, what would theoretically be the first stop of the race?
If you're all the way in the back, I would take tires and fuel. Just because if you're taking fuel, you're pushing the amount of laps you have to run on these tires. On a full fuel run, these guys were already getting down to 40% tire wear, so I would not want to push these tires any longer than I absolutely have to. So I would definitely take tires on this stop. This way you can go through that full fuel run. There's plenty of sets of tires to go around for everyone at this race, so there's no need to save them like they're running out.
TJ McMurray checking in saying, good luck, Mediocre Motorsports and all 21 Watson teams. That's about what it feels like here. Julian Altina commenting that he thought there was a hairpin coming up. For those of you watching on YouTube, yes, it appears as though YouTube has once again basically delayed the start of the broadcast for some reason. We'll just have to start setting the clocks a little bit earlier on the YouTube side of things. But yes, the full race broadcast was available on Facebook. We'll upload a full copy as well. You didn't miss anything here so far. One incident involving Nicholas Wilson and Julian Altina. Joe Miranda checking in the comments. Good to have you watching again, brother. Thank you very much. Lights are out, and the iRacing safety car is going to duck in here off of turn number 4. Matt Wagner, Scott Wise, Zach Rinker, Mario Miranda, and Chris Wilhite, your top 5. Wagner going to bring the field down pretty slow towards the start box, gets the good jump into turn number 1. See if anybody makes a big move. They're going to be coming a little bit further back in the pack if they do. Looking up towards the front, Mario Miranda inside of Zach Rinker. Mario has shown he is not afraid to be aggressive. He's going to bring Chris Wilhite with him. That's the big thing here, Patrick. You talked about getting freight trained. I don't know that Zach Rinker made anything in a mistake here. It's just Miranda made the pass and the door was open from there on out.
Yeah, these cars, once you kind of have them set in a line, it's very hard to change that line mid-corner. Like in a stock car, you can drag the brakes a little bit, cut the car back down low, and kind of block off that line mid-corner. These cars, you can't really do that. Once you have that door open, you can't slam it shut until you're back on the straightaway. So it is very, very difficult to hold position in these cars.
Brandon Ishkanian checking in on YouTube saying, good luck, Mediocre Motorsports and all drivers representing the Replacements Racing League. TJ missed the race, going to have a few less cautions tonight. We can't go that hard on TJ this early, can we?
I
It
think
depends on
He's
how.
a cool dude.
I say it depends on why he missed the race here. If TJ missed it for a reason like he slept through it, that may be an early candidate for big smooth move of the race.
We'll have to ask him about it after the race is over, because I've done that, and you definitely feel like big smooth when you wake up and the race has already started.
Oh, that's fantastic. This is one of the closer battles we have here. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, I was just looking on track. On the backstretch, a couple of the cones on the infield are knocked over. In the pre-race to this race, they were talking about knocking over the cones. Could be an EOL or a points penalty for next round. So that's going to be something we're going to have to watch out for. I have no idea who ended up hitting the cones, but it'll be interesting to see how many EOLs we get next week.
Yeah, that's the dog leg is not open on this version of the Phoenix Raceway, and probably a pretty good reason for that, because the Indy cars do not handle the transition back up onto the banking all that well. As we see J.W. Miller battling here with A.J. Muscleman. This is the fight for the 7th position. Yeah, seeing the comment here from Joe Miranda, you can probably answer this for us here, Patrick. Wondering how upset the car gets hitting the apron like that. I would tend to think, and having driven these cars a little bit, you can feel it, but it's not necessarily upsetting to the handling of the car in a great way.
I have not driven this circuit in the new IR18s, but the DW12 was a similar enough chassis. I can give a little bit of my insight. You can cut the banking. It is drivable down there, but once the tires start to go, especially if you've worn the rears more than the fronts, if you hit that transition just a little bit wrong, it'll send you spinning just about immediately. There is nothing you could do. It's almost like you just let go of the steering wheel. It is a very, very scary feeling. As the race goes on, tires start to wear at the end of this fuel run. I expect to see much fewer cars trying to even just dip their left sides down there, because it gets rough.
Yeah, picking up our race leader here, Matt Wagner, as he makes his way through turns 3 and 4, give you a little bit of a full field rundown here, at least through the top 10 anyway. No change amongst the top 2. Matt Wagner holds on to the race lead, just back behind him. Well, we'll hold up on that. Caution flag is out. Trouble on the racetrack for Julian Altina. Second incident of the night. Oh, yeah, he just pancaked it off of turn number 4. That was a big hit into the outside retaining wall.
That's one of the things the drivers were talking about in the pre-race, where the front tires seem to start to wear before the rears. You get some understeer, especially if you're pushing really hard. The car's going to want to drive up towards that outside wall, and if you're not keeping up with the weight jacker, maybe your clicks might be one click down on the weight jacker every 5 laps. If you're not keeping up with that, the car is going to get very, very tight, and almost like out of nowhere, it'll just surprise you, and you'll end up in the wall without even realizing it until it's too late.
Julian already checking in the comments. That's fantastic. Saying, I don't know what it is, but I drive like a complete idiot in this series. You know what? That's something that we'll actually see places. Drivers that are fantastic other places, just they get into certain leagues, and for whatever reason, they're good in the car all the time, except for in that specific league. But some of the race leaders are making their way down pit road, including Scott Wise, A.J. Muscleman, J.W. Miller, Sebastian Kinder, Casey Knight, and Alec Coach Jay Shallington, Jason Hand, all making pit stops here on lap number 20. And, Patrick, this is one of the things that the drivers talked about. It forces a 3-stop race, but it's going to give you significantly fresher tires. With a long green flag run, you can probably make up the time lost.
Even on a short green flag run, I'd be curious to see just the lap time difference between some of the cars that aren't pitting and the cars that have pitted. I expect to see these cars easily driving their way through the field over these first 5 laps of this next green flag run. especially with those newer tires. They haven't had a heat cycle or two on them. You can really get on it right as the green flag drops. Maybe you could be in a lower gear than everyone else. Maybe you can get on the gas harder. And in this series, you're allowed to pass on the high side on a restart. Whereas if you have real old tires on the car, you might have to start in fourth gear instead of third. And you may end up spinning the tires, have to back out of it, and that can lose you a lot of time and stack up the field behind you. And you'll lose 3 or 4 spots just on the restart alone. So it'll be something that'll be fun to watch back in the pack with all these guys that just pitted.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing here now is we have 2 distinctly different strategies that are going on here. Is our camera developer extraordinaire, Connor Baldwin, checking in saying the IRO1 is really fun to drive on this track. Yes, keep your eye out for Season 2 of the Dallara Extreme Series coming up here. Patrick and Connor are 2 of the guys who put together the Dallara Extreme Series. So keep your eye out for that one. Getting the question.
I hear the IRO1 is pretty good on road courses too.
Yeah, since the update anyway, yes. So getting the question in the comments, do you really see long runs happening here? I think at some point you kind of have to settle in a little bit. You're going to develop a feel for the car, especially as we get deeper in the run here. Once you get that first run under your belt, that's really when things start to settle in.
Yeah, these guys, we see it just about every week. Everyone gets a little antsy at the beginning of the race, gets the jitters. There's a couple of cautions early on. Then everyone starts to settle in. There's a real long green flag run, maybe a caution or 2 in between, and then we have an excellent finish to the race. And that's what I'm expecting here tonight as well.
Off of turn number 4, Matt Wagner has led every lap from the drop of the green flag. On the loud pedal early, Mario Miranda not going anywhere off his rear wing as they head into turn number 1. Wait to see how the tires come back up to temperature and where the fight's going to develop here. Tightest battle we're going to have is back in the pack just a little bit. Ty Richter with Tyler Hunt just ahead of him down the front straightaway. James Watson and Alexander Ball going to have, oh, we got caution flag on the speedway. Once again, trouble for one of the cars up towards the front of the field, AJ Muscleman. Oh, man, that was brutal net code. Good Lord. Those cars weren't
just
even
about
close
to say a little bit of net code
other.
and
Tough break there for the 54. Actually, get another look at the replay.
Thankfully, you do get a backup car in this series.
That was Scott Wise just to his outside.
Yeah, they were definitely close, and they may have just had a little kiss of contact, but the net code really blew that one out of proportion, and unfortunately, both those cars are going to have to go to the backup car, which not out of the race, but they're definitely further back than they wanted to be.
Matt Wagner once again selling the dummy here that he's going to come down pit road. First one to come in is going to be the 51 of Jim Brooks, also the 9 of Cullen Johnston, and the 89 of Zach Evans. Absolutely love the fact that the Watt spin jokes are starting to take over the comments. Seeing the 50.
It's a classic. I don't think that one's ever going to get old.
No, not really. James Watson has a thing for basically spinning himself needlessly on the pace laps. And it's turned into a bit of a joke here within the ESRA IndyCar community as well as the TNT group that runs on Tuesday nights. So haven't seen James pull that stunt yet here in the ESRA IndyCar series, but we'll put the commentator's curse on him, that's for sure.
Actually, the first Watt spin was in the series in the previous season. I think it was at Texas. It's a beautiful video. Zach T. Evans, actually, our driver in the '89 car tonight, he actually put together a wonderful compilation. If you look up Watt Spin 2 on YouTube, it is fantastic.
Well, there's enough bashing of the 39 car. Well,
yeah, I have a feeling he's going to rewatch this and yell at me.
I was going to say, I think we're going to get a hard time here, especially considering that the National Racing Network is the team sponsor here of Team Watson Racing. You'll see, you can't miss the car colors on the racetrack, that's for sure, but NRN emblazoned on the side of those cars. We are, for the hard time we give these guys, pretty proud to be on the side of these cars. James, a now 3-time overall iRacing champion in some of the off-road stuff. The guy can drive just about everything on the service. Another guy who's been absolutely fantastic here tonight, Patrick, Mario Miranda, up 3 spots from where he started, and he's doing it in the hard way. He's getting these passes done on the racetrack. No strategy, none of the games. He's making up the time the hard way.
I was going to say, every week on these ovals, we have seen him just go at it, be more aggressive than everyone else, make the moves that nobody else is able to do. And we said this track is extremely difficult to pass at. He is doing it just a perfect way. Get under there, force that door open, and leave that driver hung out to dry. I wouldn't be surprised if Mario Miranda gets around Matt Wagner and forces Matt Wagner to drop back even to the 5th position. So Mario Miranda is going to be a fun car to watch on this track.
It's definitely a challenge here when you don't control when the leader decides to go. We saw Matt Wagner make the big jump the last time on the restart, just before the start and restart box lines painted on the front straightaway. Basically, once the pace car is on pit lane, he can go, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Slows the field up just a little bit, and Matt Wagner checking out into turn 1. Back in the pack, Alexander Ball, Tyler Hunt going to be fighting for position. Ball in the grid rival, number 29. Hunt in the number 80. That silver, white, and black car with the red rims. Ball definitely wants a piece of James Watson here, and I would imagine, Patrick, as you're starting to fight the tires going away, you really have to pick and choose when you're going to try the pass.
Yeah, and you also have to pick and choose when you're going to defend, which is why once the tires really start to wear, you don't see the crazy side-by-side battles. You usually see someone open the door and the other person just kind of walk on by and take it. For both drivers, it's not really worth it to fight over position right now, especially with how early in the race it is. You don't want to fight for position right now because fighting for position either loses you time or wrecks you out of the race, and sometimes it's just not worth it.
Taking a look here back at the front of the field, Matt Wagner holding on to an 0.8 of a second lead over Mario Miranda. There you see the gap down the front straightaway. Chris Wilhite runs in the 3rd position, about half of that back, half a second now, in fact, as well. Zach Rinker running in the 3rd position. There's a look at Wilhite. Then we'll slide back, pick up Zach Rinker. Pretty big gap here, 1.5 seconds back to James Watson. Then we'll have Alexander Ball, Ty Richter, and Tyler Hunt. Those 3 cars going to continue their festivities. These fights all inside the top 10.
You can see Alexander Ball was right on the gearbox of James Watson's car. As soon as he started fighting with Ty Richter, James Watson has opened the gap right out. Just fighting, trying to hold off that car behind or trying to pass a car, you're both ending up losing time in the long run. So if you have an opportunity to make the move, you want to make the move like he's trying right here and just take off with it. Otherwise, it's better just to sit in line, get back up towards the front of the pack, and then start fighting again.
Richter able to clear Ball easily off of turn number 2, already completing the lap the pass was completed on. 40 of 150 laps in the books now, and Trouble on the racetrack. Yellow flag once again. Caution flag number 4 for the evening. This time going to be Zach Evans having an issue out here on the speedway. Take a look and see what happened to that car. Running up towards the front of the field. Wow, just snapped loose on corner entry. Pounds the left rear corner of that car into the outside safer barrier, and he will have to take the tow back into the pit area.
I wonder if he was feeling a good deal of push coming from the front tires, which is where the car wants to just drive into the outside wall. I wonder if he just started cranking on the weight jacker, trying to get the car to do something, just get it to turn, went a couple adjustments too far, and that just looks like he had the weight jacker set way too high and it just came around on him.
Going to have to start seeing some of our leaders making their first pit stops here. It's going to come right here at lap number 41. Matt Wagner, Mario Miranda, Zach Rinker, Ty Richter, Alexander Ball, Benjamin Combs, Brian Vols, Isaac Mock, Jay Shallington, Nicholas Wilson, all in the pit area. Chris Wilhite, James Watson, Tyler Hunt. The top 3 staying out on the racetrack.
Those 3 cars haven't pitted at all in this race yet. I'm curious if they're trying something, maybe hoping for a caution immediately after this one, just trying to stretch a couple more laps out of this fuel run, but that seems real risky to me, because that's a huge risk of having to pit on the green flag and going a lap down.
You almost wonder, with all the caution laps that we've had so far, these drivers could easily go 50 laps. That was kind of the number that we were hearing. Could you possibly stretch it to 75 and make this a one-stop race? I can't imagine the tires would last that long.
I don't know if the tires would last that long, but if you can hang on, stand the lead lap, and make that strategy work, that might be the winning strategy. Especially with how much you can save fuel in these cars. There's 5 different fuel-saving maps alone, just for green flag conditions. In fuel map 5, you can get about 3.5 miles per gallon in these cars, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but in full race, full power conditions, you're getting anywhere between 1.9 and 2.5 miles per gallon. So that's over an additional, with a 1 mile track, that's an additional lap every single gallon of fuel you use. So it's a huge difference. And these guys, especially some of these guys who haven't pitted yet, I imagine they're trying to save that much.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Even the potential is, by stretching it past 50 laps, any lap that you gain past 50 laps is fewer laps that you have to run on your final set of tires. So even if you're going to make it a 2-stop race, if you can get to lap 60, now you're talking about having to run 10 fewer laps than anybody who stops at lap 50 and lap 100. That could be a huge deal, having 10-lap fresher tires when we get to the end of this thing.
Yeah, especially if there's a late race caution, you all are in the top 3. Nobody's going to want to pit and lose any of those top 3 spots. So if your tires are 10 laps newer, you're sitting at 3rd position, you could definitely make up those last 2 spots and get into the lead and win the race on the last lap.
So lights are out. We're going to come back to green this next time by. Chris Wilhite will be your race leader when they come back to the flag. James Watson will restart in 2nd. Tyler Hunt 3rd. J.W. Miller 4th. He has made a pit stop. In fact, everybody but the top 3 has made a pit stop. Alec Coates rounding out the top 5. Sebastian Kinder, Jim Brooks, Scott Wise, Cullen Johnston, and Jason Hand, your top 10. Off of turn number 4. What's Chris Wilhite going to do on the restart? Keeps the speed pretty constant. Green flag goes back in the air. Watson leaving about 5 car lengths as they head into turn number 1. J.W. Miller on the fresher tires. We'll see how quickly he's on the charge. Sebastian Kinder looking to the inside of the 51 of Jim Brooks. Brooks going to have to run the high line. Scott Wise goes up top with him. Wise may actually come around the Frenchman as they head into turn 3. He does. Completes that pass in a pretty big power move. Chris Wilhite just set the fastest lap of the race, 20.77 seconds on 47 lap-old tires. Kind of goes to show you, yeah, there's some benefit to having fresh tires, but clean air may be even more important.
Yeah, this track is so small, you need all the wing you can get. You can see these cars are running the high downforce configuration. Almost looks like the road course configuration of wings with the big giant wings, not the little tiny ones we got in the big ovals. So these cars produce a huge wake. You have almost no grip on those front tires when you're behind another car. You get out in front and you're just about unstoppable.
It'll be lap number 50 going on the board this time. Pretty darn close to 1/3 distance. J.W. Miller, after dispatching Tyler Hunt a lap after the restart, closing in pretty quickly here on James Watson for the second position. We're almost in the territory here, Patrick, where for the cars that stopped at lap 23 and lap 29, you almost would need to come into the pits now just to keep that similar strategy game going on, depending on where you are anyway in the order.
Yeah, I would definitely pitting now is an option. Just to stick with a 2-stop to the end of this race strategy. It would end up being 3 stops for you, but even still, I don't know if I'd want to lose the track position with how hard it is to pass. Going a lap down is just about race over unless you get lucky with a couple cautions in your pit strategy.
Miller going to look to the inside of James Watson at 3. Yeah.
I was going to say, he's really looking around, diving around, searching for that clean air just to try and get a run on James.
This is the battle for the second position. Ask and ye shall receive in the comments. There are the gaps back to 20th place. Casey Knighton. We have 5 cars currently being scored at least 1 lap down. AJ Musselman, Kyle Hanna, and Zach Evans. Julian Altina and Henry Brycecorn are out of the race, both completing less than 20 laps. As Miller going to look to the inside of Watson. Watson has to go way up against the outside safer barrier in 3 and 4. Move J.W. Miller up to the second position. Watson's car almost looks like he's got a little bit of a twitch when you're really in tight on the back end of J.W. Miller's car. That aero wash has to be pretty massive here at Phoenix.
Yeah, even in the PM18 cars, much lower horsepower car, much slower, you can still feel it, and it's very difficult to get the car turned and set in and not hit that bright blue outside wall.
So here's the laps that all of your cars inside the top 20 have made a pit stop on. The top 3 of the top 4 have not yet stopped. Chris Wilhite going to be due to come into the pit lane pretty quickly here. We heard 50 laps was about the limit for how far you were going to be able to go on a run. With all the caution laps, I would imagine they probably saved anywhere from 10, maybe 15 laps worth of fuel. At this point, Chris Wilhite, James Watson, and Tyler Hunt are absolutely begging for a caution flag.
Either that or they might be far enough ahead where they could take a pit stop and, I don't want to say stay in the lead lap, but be within range, be towards the front of 1 lap down to try and hope to get it back. So they're not down and out yet.
Looking a little bit deeper back in the field, Mario Miranda. This is the closest fight on the racetrack, closing in on Matt Wagner. Both of these cars stopped at lap number 41. the effective battle for the race lead is everybody else ahead of them will have to stop. They will cycle through to the head of the field unless we have a caution flag. That's the big if in this whole scenario here. It's really going to be interesting to see if Wilhite, Watson, and Hunt are able to stretch it. We're already at lap 61. Can they make it through lap 75 and make this a one-stop race?
I would be really impressed if they could. We're going to need a couple more cautions to make that work, but it'd be impressive nonetheless. And even still, if they can stretch it to lap 65, that makes their next pit stop on lap 130. If they can do the same thing again, that only puts 20 laps on tires for the final fuel run. If they can stay on the lead lap, that would be killer. I think they could drive through the field again and get the race win.
Pulled up here to look at the 10 of Alec Coates, the 51 of Jim Brooks, and the 31 of Scott Wise making their way through turns 3 and 4. This is the fight for the 4th position. Hunt is one of those 3 cars that has not made the stop yet. Maybe holding up Brooks and Wise just a little bit, but at the same time, you're almost probably not all that concerned if you're Brooks and Wise, because now you can really go into a bit of a fuel save mode.
Yeah, those guys are going to look to save as much fuel as they can and try and get back on strategy with some of the other cars. I see the only cars that pit on lap 29 is Jim Brooks, Scott Wise, and Cullen Johnston. So those guys are a little in between the lap 41 strategy and the lap 23 strategy. So either they're all going to stay on their own or they're going to try and hop back onto a strategy with some of the other guys.
Chris Wilhite, your race leader, making his way down pit road. So there's the answer. You could go with 4 cautions. You can make it 67 laps as James Watson screams that car onto pit road. Both of these cars will be making their first pit stops of the race here on lap 67. It's going to put them out to lap 121 or so.
I'm curious to see if that's going to be speeding entering the pits penalty. We'll have to see how long that pit stop took for James Watson.
Watson down and away, 8.23 seconds, so no penalty assessed for speeding. Tyler Hunt.
It also looks like Tyler Hunt is going to stay on the lead lap. Nope, he just went a lap down.
Yeah, he's down and away 9.17 seconds. That's going to put J.W. Miller into the lead of this race. Alec Coates now running in the 2nd position. Jim Brooks, Scott Wise, Matt Wagner, your top 5. You wonder, from thinking the big picture perspective here, Patrick, is there, if you're in James Watson's shoes, do you sort of have to do what Matt Wagner's doing? A caution flag is out on the speedway. Oh, man, just a couple of laps.
3 guys.
I say just a couple of laps late. Trouble on the racetrack for Nicholas Wilson. Had an issue earlier in the race. Bangs it off the inside retaining wall. Almost collecting another car in the process as well. He'll come to a stop up against the outside safer barrier and tow back into the pit area. This is really where it kind of jams everybody up here that just stopped at lap number 66 or 67. The reason I say that is, without a lucky dog, nobody's getting a free pass. The only way to almost artificially get yourself back on the lead lap is if everybody ahead of you makes a pit stop. That would put you between the race leader and the pace car. Then you can come back out. You can cycle around and take the wave around. For everybody else, you're basically kind of stuck here if the entire field does not come down pit road. Looks like
Matt Wagner looks like he's going to... Nope, he does dive into the pits.
Yeah, looking here,
Oh, and we're going to have one car stay out.
looks like Alexander Ball going to stay out on the racetrack. So he will assume the race lead.
Now, do you recall in this series if they leave the lap cars where they are, or do they cycle them into the back of the pack?
If I remember correctly, they cycle around to
restart.
the back. Lap cars head to the back is my understanding
That's going
here.
to be a real shame.
I was going to say that's really where the overcut strategy really can burn you in a very, very big way. Similar to how a big undercut can also burn you by catching you a lap down. Looks like it's going to be a bit of a long road to hoe here for Chris Wilhite, James Watson, Tyler Hunt, and AJ Musselman. Musselman stayed out on the racetrack, so he's gotten himself back to one lap down. Alexander Ball, Jay Shallington staying out on the racetrack, and they will be your race leaders. What strategy giveth, strategy can take away. And that was sort of where my question was going of, if you're James Watson, do you have to do what Matt Wagner does, at least early in the race, knowing that if Wagner gaps you in a pretty big way, that could be the end of your championship hopes?
Yeah, depending on how many cars go a lap down, too, you're not going to get a good points finishing night unless you get back on that lead lap. So it'll be interesting to see, and we might have a huge point shakeup after this race is over.
Seeing AJ Musselman coming back down to the inside and electing to take the tow back into the pit area. So Musselman looks like he may be out of this race here, along with Nicholas Wilson, Julian Altina, and Henri Brycecorn. James Watson is the first car one lap down, but he will have to cycle back into the 19th position on the racetrack. Basically, at this point, I'm not sure what the answer is for James to get back to the lead lap, other than hope that everything times out really, really well late in this run, and everybody has to come back into the pits. And not be the first car one lap down as well, or be in a position that you can keep yourself between the leader and the pace car. Fields on the home straightaway. Alexander Ball brings him down nice and slow. He'll be the race leader into turn number one. Matt Wagner going to be fighting with Scott Wise. Wagner to the inside. Oh, he's going to push up the racetrack. They make contact.
Oh.
Wise bounces it gently off the outside safer barrier. Whole lot of right side romance from Matt Wagner. He'll keep the position, but you wonder if that car isn't damaged a little bit.
Yeah, these cars are very, very delicate. Even a little bit of contact like that could end up ripping part of your wing off. And as you see Mary Miranda looking all over Matt Wagner's rear wing, his rear gearbox, it's going to be tough for him to hold him off until we get another caution here and he can go take that backup car.
Looking just a little bit further ahead here, Alec Coates coming around Jim Brooks. Jay Shallington in that fight as well. Alexander Ball so far has been able to hold off J.W. Miller. Is Matt Wagner now going to look to the inside of Shallington? The difference in tires there is pretty huge. Shallington stopping at lap 41, lap 72 on the stop for the other cars that are out here on the racetrack. And new race leader J.W. Miller coming around Alexander Ball in turns 1 and 2. Get you the Hot Shoe Racewear instant replay of that pass for the lead. Miller set it up nicely off of 4, completes the pass easily through turns 1 and 2, and he's already checked out to a 1-second lead over Alexander Ball, who has Alec coach Jim Brooks and Matt Wagner hot on his heels.
Yeah, here you're going to see the difference that new tires and old tires make. These guys are just going to drive past him like he's standing still.
Coates looks to the inside.
First
He'll
car
get the pass
of Alec
completed.
Coates come around.
Yep, there's Matt Wagner going down there as
Matt
well.
Wagner almost looked like he wanted to take it 3 wide, but backed out of it. So we see Alexander Ball going from the lead to 6th position over a lap and a half. It's just crazy, the difference between new tires and old tires. Even for that pass for the lead, that was old tires in clean air versus new tires in dirty air, and still made it look easy.
Yeah, James Watson is doing much the same thing here at the back of the pack. Tyler Hunt coming with him. Everybody else, this is the problem these guys have, is everybody else ahead of them is on about 10-lap newer tires. Goes to show you what a fast car can still do out here on the racetrack, though. Pick up this fight with Alexander Ball and Zach Rinker. We've got a hornet's nest going on here as Scott Wise is right there as well. Here's Sebastian Kinder looking to the inside of Ball. Just continuing to fall through the field. But again, not wholly unexpected. And if you're Alexander Ball, you kind of have to play the game of, this is the strategy that I'm on. Oh, man, they're almost
3 wide around him. James Watson take the inside.
If you're Alexander Ball, caution flag on the racetrack. Trouble for Kyle Hanna.
See, I almost want to say James is pushing a little too hard here. He needs to settle in, running these fuel-saving maps, and try and get himself to where he doesn't have to pit on one of these cautions. But this one's too early for him to get his lap back.
Yeah, that's basically it. I really don't see anybody coming down pit road this time. They all stopped at either lap 72 or lap 73.
I think this is a huge break for Chase Allington and Alexander Ball, though. Those two guys are now going to be able to pit and not go a lap down and try and force their way back through the field again. Now, for those guys who are forced to pit and ended up a lap down, I'm seeing the best hand for them is for them to come down the pits this next lap, fill the car up with fuel again, and try to push it as far as you can again and try and see if you can force your lap back.
I was going to say, if you're stopping at lap 88, lap 89, you're not quite to the window of you can make it to the end, but you're getting very, very close with a little bit of fuel saving and some help from the caution flags. We're pretty quickly approaching 2/3 distance here.
I was going to say, and those 3 cars actually made it 67 laps on a tank of fuel. We are well within the window of making another 67 laps to the finish of this race. It would require a bunch of cautions, a ton of luck, but it is possible to do, as we've seen in the early part. So maybe one of these guys all the way in the back, maybe tail end of the lead lap, front end of a lap down, they might want to try that strategy and see where it gets them.
Here we see James Watson making his way down pit road, as is Jay Shallington, Zach Evans, Kyle Hanna also. Zach Evans still on his way into his pit box. This is sort of where you really have to play the game of, my strategy cards are played. You just kind of have to see how they're going, how the rest of the hand is going to unfold.
Yeah, the fate of your race is pretty much in the hands of everyone else, which is why I don't like playing strategies like this, just because you've taken your own destiny and kind of put it in the hands of the race. And the racing gods are very, very mean, unkind, very unforgiving people. Sometimes they'll give you a win here and there, but usually when you leave it in the hands of the racing gods, they just like to screw you.
It is definitely going to be interesting to watch this play out. My math says Watson and the other cars here, Jay Shallington, that stopped on lap 88 can make it to lap 142. You are very, very close to making that lap 150 number. Now, the green-white checkered absolutely hoses you. If that comes at the end, that comes at the end. But we're not that far off. I mean, take a look here. Let's go on board with James Watson. Getting ready to go back to green flag racing here, but he's still in that really low fuel map. Fuel map 8, clutch and coast. Green flag goes back in the air here. Lap number 91, J.W. Miller checks out on Alec Coates. Mario Miranda going to look to the outside of Matt Wagner. This really is a racetrack where you talk about selling the dummy on a road course and getting a driver to react. Phoenix is such a tight little bull ring that you really can make that work here as well.
Yeah, you can try and fake a move maybe to the high side, and 3 and 4 especially, you can make a move on the high side. Force that driver up there, play your hand, dive down to the low side of him. Then in turn in 1 and 2, where the only line is the low line, that's where you're going to make your move, and you're going to sail on by the driver in front like he wasn't even there.
Looks like Ty Richter may have gotten a piece of the outside retaining wall off of turn number 4 last time by. Doesn't look like the car has too much damage, but that doesn't mean the racing gods, as you mentioned here, Patrick, aren't going to give you a 4-minute repair the next time you come into the pits.
Yeah, especially with these cars, sometimes you get very lucky, you'll scrub the wall, and it'll be a 15-second front or rear wing change, and that's no big deal. And then sometimes you catch just enough of the tire where all of a sudden they're replacing a control arm and your tie rods and all the linkages, and you're 8 laps down by the time you get back on the racetrack.
Mario Miranda has Zach Rinker and Scott Wise catching up in a pretty big way here. You wonder if Miranda's not in a bit of a fuel save mode here, as that car
he
has
does not
backed
look
off
like
of
he's
Matt
in the
Wagner.
same hurry he was earlier.
Rinker and Wise will continue this duel. Right now, it's the best battle on the racetrack. Jim Brooks catching in. Excuse me, Matt Wagner catching in. At least starting to anyway here with Jim Brooks. These fights, it's almost comical to watch the gaps kind of grow, then they fall back, they grow, then they tighten back up. It seems like the drivers will even just make a tiny bit of a mistake, and all of a sudden you're right back into settle yourself and start making good laps again.
Yeah, it's like what we saw at the final round of Phoenix in TNT last season, where me and Wes were really, really going at it here, and you can just make a little bit of a mistake, get your lines a little bit wrong, and you have to back way out of it. And it's like the incident we saw in the last lap between me and him, where neither one of us were going to back out of it. We both bobbled up, hit the outside wall, and that was race over. These guys are trying to avoid that now, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a similar incident towards the end of this race, get to that last lap or so, and nobody wants to lift their foot off the gas anymore.
So Cullen Johnston fighting with James Watson, and if you look on the left-hand side of your screen, we are back to 18 cars on the lead lap. So I believe James Watson may have been a lucky dog. Got his lap back. Now Watson is in full fuel save and try to make this show all the way to the end. That would be an absolutely epic drive if he's able to go basically 65 laps on one tank of fuel. Field is definitely settled in here, Patrick, and this may be the part of the race here where we start talking about, is this the long green flag run that we talked about? You have your early issues. Anybody who may not be real comfortable with the car has already used the backup, maybe crashed themselves out of the race. You're really going to start to settle in and log a ton of laps here now.
Yeah, this is when we see these drivers really just drive single file, not make a move unless the car in front of you is god-awful slow. And then towards the end of the race, that's when we see these guys really start making moves again. We'll see Mario Miranda making some absolutely insane moves, diving just to the track limits, squeezing gaps that aren't really there. And that's when we get our incidents, but that's when we have the best racing we see in this series. And we're nearing that point. I am on the edge of my seat. I might be standing at the end of this race.
Yeah, what's the old promotions line? They'll sell you the whole seat, but you're only going to use the edge of it. That may become true here late in the race. We saw this 1 week ago at Long Beach. Mario Miranda closing in a huge way. Ultimately, a mistake knocks the race leader out, and Miranda went on to cruise to a fairly easy victory as we see massive Kona side down the back straightaway. Someone will be getting a look from the stewards. For anybody who's just tuned in here, the dogleg is not available as an option. Once somebody takes out a whole row of cones, iRacing will so very kindly is to send Barney the flagman out to put them all back while the track is still green. But race control was going to be looking at that pretty seriously here. Matt Wagner and Jim Brooks going to duel here for the third position.
The reason for that, too, is these cars are very, very sensitive to any little bit of aero damage, and those cones, when you do hit them, they get scattered all over the track, and they can affect someone else's race. So it's not so much an issue as cutting below that yellow line and gaining an advantage that way. It's more of an issue of now you've littered the track with these hard plastic objects, and they could take someone out of the race who had nothing to do with the incident and didn't deserve to be taken out of the race.
Mario Miranda catching in pretty quickly here on Jim Brooks. This is the fight for the fourth position. Not too far off from what would be a final set of pit stops. The other big thing to watch here, Patrick, is what the pit delta is going to look like. If we pull up the pit lane time, we can actually show you what that looked like. It's about 43 seconds in total on pit lane. James Watson is currently sitting 17 seconds back and losing ground to the race leader. He can't get too far back here and either go a lap down He really needs to hope Jason Hand doesn't go a lap down. But you kind of you're stuck in this mode of you can't lose too much ground, while at the same time having to really conserve fuel. Race leader J.W. Miller on pit road for his final stop. Seeing Rare Blend checking in the comments. Let's go, Super Mario. Miller down and away cleanly, 8.13 seconds. Full tank of Speedway fuel for Firestone. Firehawks going on that car. He's down and away. Currently a lap down to everybody else who's ahead of him here. Makes Alec Coates your race leader. We'll see when everybody's going to have to cycle in here. The other big part of that strategy call of maybe trying to stretch this to the end, Patrick, is you're going to have drivers on 30-lap fresher tires turning significantly faster laps than what anybody making the strategy play is.
Yes, you do have that side of it. However, if you do get in the front of the field, have that clean air. We were seeing before with James Watson and I forget who else, but clean air, even with much older tires, is worth about a tenth of a second versus new tires. So unless your tires are really, really that worn, I don't see it being a race-ending decision. I see you being able to hold off your own. Maybe you might not get the win, but you'll still finish third, and that'll be a lot better than where you could have ended up if the strategy had gotten wrong.
So far, J.W. Miller is the only car that's made the early pit stop. Casey Knighton stopping at lap number 117. He was a little bit farther down in the running order. This is where the caution flag that could come out. J.W. Miller would be the lucky dog. He would get back on the lead lap. For cars like James Watson, Alexander Ball, Cullen Johnson, and Jason Hand, they really need to see this race go green to the end.
Yeah, it throws the strategy way off if caution comes out now. As we see a bunch of tire smoke everywhere, I'm going to assume that was a car trying to enter the pits a little too hot.
Yeah, Zach Brinker, Mario Miranda on their way into the pit area.
But one good thing that could happen to some of these cars that are trying to stretch it all the way to the end, if the caution comes out and there's only 3 or 4 cars on the lead lap, that basically gives you a free pit stop. You can go take the pits. If a car doesn't pit, there's still only 3 or 4 cars on the lead lap. If all of you guys pit, you guys are still locked at the front of the field because all of those cars are going to be a wave around anyway. So it's a win-win scenario at this point, provided you put enough cars one lap down.
Mario Miranda coming right out with Zach Rinker. They'll continue this fight. Off at turn number 4, Tyler Hunt is into the pit area. So one of the cars that was playing the long game, electing to come into the pits here. Scott Wise, one of your race leaders, on pit road now. Again, this is your final set of stops coming starting at lap 121, continuing here through lap 126. This is sort of that situation that you talked about here. Oh, Wise overshoots the pit box just a little bit. He's going to have to back up. Car gets the air, team gets the air jack in. He's up, down, and away. 10.32 seconds. Your race leader is on pit road. Alec Coates and Jim Brooks. Now Matt Wagner, Sebastian Kinder staying out on the racetrack, and James Watson has cycled up to the 5th position. Alexander Ball running in 6th, Cullen Johnston 7th, and they'll all move up positions here. Watson now in a podium position. And this is sort of that scenario that you talked about here, Patrick, where now you're almost going to get a freebie. Even if the top 5 come down and everybody else stays out, all they're going to do is get the wave around, and you're still going to be at the front of the field.
Yep. Even if, only, let's say, for example, only Alexander Ball pits this time by, the worst that's going to happen to him is he's going to go down the 5th position. He loses 1 spot, but he has fresh, brand new sticker tires on that car, so he'll be able to drive right through them and go get the win. If everyone pits, he stays right where he is. So there's no losing here for these top 5 right now. And all of these drivers in the top 5, except Matt Wagner, are currently in a position at least 5 spots higher from where they started this race. As Matt Wagner now starts to come down the pit lane, there will only be 4 cars in the lead lap now.
Sebastian Kinder coming down pit road as well. That's going to put James Watson, Alexander Ball, and Cullen Johnston to the head of the field. This is going to be very, very close here for Matt Wagner. He may not go a lap down. Still going to be well in arrears to James Watson. Wagner down and away 8.05 seconds, 8.65 seconds on the stop for Sebastian Kinder. There's your new race leader.
I was going to say, you could see just how much of a gap that Matt Wagner had on everyone else, him and Sebastian Kinder. There are now 12 cars back on the lead lap, so his car was fast all night, and now the strategy kind of gets shaken up. Is it really going to work now if a caution comes out?
Seeing 12 cars on the lead lap, including J.W. Miller, who stopped at lap 114. However, Miller is 7 and change seconds back of race leader James Watson. Mario Miranda is the most recent car to stop. He running in the 6th position. It's going to be interesting to see if James Watson is going to be able to make this last. He has a 3.5 second lead over Alexander Ball, but he's caught up in lap traffic just a little bit. This is where
what's amazing to me is if you watch that gap just right next to J.W. Miller's name on the telemetry, you could see how rapidly that gap is shrinking. Over the past lap, he's gained 0.4 of a second.
There's Sebastian Kinder going to the inside of James Watson, putting himself back on the lead lap. Maybe a little bit of team niceties there, allowing Kinder back onto the lead lap. But this is, if you look at where the times are now, Patrick, there was a very narrow window where Watson, Ball, Johnston could have made a pit stop. That window has now closed. Because the caution didn't fly when they needed it to, these guys are basically in keep this thing green to the end and hope that the advantage is able to stay at 5 seconds over J.W. Miller.
I was going to say, J.W. Miller got that down to about 4.5 seconds. He's back up to 5 seconds now, but if he continues at the same pace of about 3 to 4 tenths a lap, with 11 laps to go, I think he could be there at James Watson's gearbox by the white flag of this race. And if he's able to make that move is something we'll have to watch and see. As J.W. Miller is now up to the 3rd position. All he has left is Alexander Ball, just 0.6 of a second ahead of him. And then his last target is James Watson. Let's see if he can do it.
Race leader coming off of turn number 4. He will see 2 outstretched palms. 10 laps to go here at Phoenix. J.W. Miller dispatches Alexander Ball with ease in turns 1 and 2. The gap is stationary around 5 seconds here.
I was going to say, James has a good deal of clean air in front of him. J.W. Miller still has Casey Knighton in front of him to pass. As soon as he passes Casey Knighton, he has clean air pretty much all the way until he catches up to the car in 21st position, and then comes James Watson. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do it now in the next 8 laps.
It's going to be tight for sure. The gap is continuing to shrink. And about the worst thing that James Watson can see right now is a caution flag. There is your race leader making his way through turns 1 and 2. The other question here, Patrick, that we don't have an answer to yet, does James Watson have enough fuel to make the end of this race?
I think it's going to be very, very tight. If there's a green-white checkered, I'm going to say definitely not. He does not have enough fuel. But if we're just going to the regular white flag, checkered flag, I think he might be able to do it. I don't know if he'll have enough fuel
on the
to do a
speedway.
burnout. And
Caution is out. Tyler Hunt and Benjamin Combs having an issue. Let's go back a little bit here. Trouble for Jason Hand. Oh, he got a ton of help going around. Yeah, that was Tyler Hunt that got into the back of Hand. Oh, and then Benjamin Combs got a huge piece of it as well. What a tough break there. 2 of the Team Watson racing cars basically knocked out of the race. The comments starting to light up with this one. Yes, game changer is the perfect way to put that one. TJ McMurray.
So James Watson's last... I was going to say, James Watson's last pit stop's lap 88. J.W. Miller stopped on lap 144, and Mario Miranda stopped on 122. Mario Miranda has the freshest tires out of these 3 cars. Now, if he's going to be able to pass these last 2 cars on however few laps we have at the end of this race, I don't know if he's got it in the car. J.W. Miller, though, I believe he could absolutely get that pass done on James Watson. Unless James pulls out something crazy, maybe throws a block out of his back pocket, and is able to hold him off right to the end. So it's going to be a fun one to watch for sure.
Let's bring our race leader into the booth here, James Watson, and the strategy calls have been almost perfect to this point. Do you have anything left to hold off J.W. Miller and Mario Miranda?
I've got 1 lap of fuel left, so if it's a 1-lap shootout, I may have enough fuel to go full bore and try to do something.
Wow. Well, yeah, this one's going to be exciting for sure then. I appreciate you spilling some state secrets on the air too, but good luck to you the rest of the way here.
Just remember, clutch and coast.
Yeah, that's right. This is full clutch and coast here. In fact, this will be a 1-lap shootout.
Like I said, I don't know if he's going to have enough fuel to do a burnout.
I would say, are we going to go... This may be a very, very short run to the finish here, actually. If the lights go out here...
Yeah, James...
Lights are out.
Lights are out. We're going to have a 1-lap
shootout. Green and white flag will fly together. This is going to be intense. What was the part about you not needing your seat at the end of this one, Patrick? We're in for
I'm out of it.
big-time
Don't worry.
shootout. Can James Watson hold on, sip enough fuel? J.W. Miller, Mario Miranda, fresher tires, plenty of fuel to make the end of this one. What's it going to be? How good of a restart can James Watson get? Pace car is in. Quickly back to the throttle.
Spins the tires a little bit, but
he's got about a 5-car length lead into turns 1 and 2. And it's going to be a green-white checkered. Watson's out of fuel. He's out of fuel to the inside. J.W. Miller, Mario Miranda going to fight this one out for the win. It'll be white flag next time by. White flag's in the air. 1 lap to go here at Phoenix. J.W. Miller, Mario Miranda. It's going to have to be an absolutely epic move by Miranda. He's all the way down to the apron, but it's not going to work. Off at turn number 4, J.W. Miller gets the win, and Matt Wagner comes around Wagner. Matt Wagner sets the fastest lap of the race and claims the 2nd position at the checkered flag. Show you that final lap again for Matt Wagner. He was fighting with Zach Rinker. Absolutely gassed it this final lap.
I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't lift at all that whole lap, just stayed in it. This is what really helped him. Mario Miranda trying to cut the course gave Matt Wagner clean air the entire way.
Oh, man, that was tight. What a finish. Wow. There's your race winner, J.W. Miller. What a fantastic drive.
Absolutely burning it down. He deserves it. That was his flawless run tonight.
And a heartbreaker for James Watson. He'll come home in the 14th position. 1 lap down. Let's get you your race results here. J.W. Miller, the winner by 0.6 of a second over Matt Wagner, Mario Miranda, Zach Rinker, Alec Coach, your top 5. Alexander Ball, Jim Brooks, Jay Shallington, Ty Richter, and Scott Wise complete the top 10. Sebastian Kinder, Cullen Johnston, Casey Knighton, James Watson, and Isaac Mock through 15th position. Jeff Destino, Zach Evans, Benjamin Combs, Kyle Hanna, and Tyler Hunt back through 20th. 21st goes to Jason Hand, 22nd Brian Voles, 23rd to Chris Wilhite, 24th AJ Musselman, 25th to Nicholas Wilson, Julian Altina 26th, and 27th Henri Bryce-Corn. But with that, let's get our Victory Lane interviews queued up here. What a fantastic race we saw tonight. Let's kick things off first here with 3rd place finishing Mario Miranda. Mario, a pretty fantastic drive for you here tonight. What were you thinking leading into that final caution? Because it seemed like you were going to be kind of stuck in no man's land about 4th, 5th position.
That last caution, I knew my tires were better than the 2 guys in front of me coming to the restart, and I didn't know if James had enough to save or not. But it was just seeing if I could get anything to get past JW, because I knew his tires were worse, but it's just so hard to pass here.
It was a very, very good run for you tonight. You made the strategy calls almost to perfection. Really not a lot you can complain about here. And again, a fantastic points night for you after the win last week at Long Beach.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to pit a lot earlier than I did, but I was so worried about a caution coming out and being stuck a lap down. I kind of hesitated and waited for more drivers to pit, and then I pitted and the field followed, and it was a weird second half because there was a lot of guessing on what was going to happen, but it turned out pretty well for us.
That last pass into turns 3 and 4, ultimately, passing attempt, I should say, ultimately cost you the runner-up finish here tonight. Was it purely just go full send here and hope you could get it?
Basically, these definitely don't run like stock cars, and it didn't. There's just no rubber down there. It's all dust, and it cost me. But I wanted to try it, and looking back on it, I regretted it. I could have just stayed behind him and just claimed second. But I'm happy I didn't slide up in front of Wagner in his race in a bad way. But yeah, it was just a last ditch effort to try something.
I tell you what, thank you very much for trying it, because it had all of us on the edge of our seat and out of our seats for that matter. So congratulations on the great run tonight. Who do you want to thank?
Thank you. I want to thank you guys for broadcasting. Also, Flamingo Promo being on the car, Burnt Rubber Media. Those guys are awesome. And Race City Sims and Circle B Diecast. Couldn't do it without y'all. And Mom and Dad watching.
There you go. There's Mario Miranda, your third place finisher. Let's bring in our runner-up tonight here, Matt Wagner. Matt, you were here, you were there. It seemed like you were a little bit of everywhere throughout the field tonight. I guess that's kind of just the nature of strategy racing like we see here at Phoenix.
Yeah, I was trying to based on traffic, it was very hard to pass. So I was trying to judge where I can pit and minimize the stops. I have no idea what the leaders have done. I guess they stayed out and tried to gamble on fuel. Right on them. I applaud them. Good job, JW. It's awesome.
Yeah, you know what? JW stopped at lap 114. Mario stopped at lap 122. What are you thinking then? If you don't know what kind of tires the guy in front of you has when you see that dive bomb into turns 3 and 4 on the white flag lap?
I'm afraid of the dive bomb. I had to do something to because I think I had the freshest tires out of the front two. I'm not exactly positive, but I felt like it. But I just sent it on in there and took the spot away. It was quite an interesting race. It was fun. I quite enjoyed it.
Well, it was a great points night, too, with James trying to make the run last all the way to the end, unfortunately running out basically at the green flag. You're going to see the points lead expand in a pretty big way here tonight.
That's my boss. I feel bad for the boss. That's I feel bad, but again, trying to get his first win of the season, it's pretty rough. Tough pill to swallow, but hopefully he'll bounce back next week. But the points lead, I think I got a nice cushion. We'll see when it gets posted.
All right, Matt. Well, congratulations on the runner-up finish here tonight. Who do you want to thank?
Well, hello, Mr. Patrick. I know you've been quiet over there. Chris, you guys, nice show there. Love you guys. NRN, HyperX, Bud Kicker, everybody. Team Area 51. Been on a great show. Oh, and Team Watson Racing, a great team effort tonight. I feel bad for the boss. So, all right. We'll see you guys later.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. We appreciate it, bud. Let's pick up our race winner, J.W. Miller. You had to have known that James was going to be very, very tight on fuel, but what are you thinking when you see him have to duck off there right on the restart?
Yeah, definitely
gave me a little bit of sigh of relief. He said that he was 1 lap short, so that's unfortunate for him. But I think we kind of needed that caution in order to catch up with him at least. But yeah, I think it just added one extra lap on his agenda that he didn't have. But yeah, we came away with a pretty good strategy tonight, so I'm happy.
Seemed like the car was very quick all night long, even running through traffic, setting some pretty darn quick laps throughout the course of the race. How hooked up was that All-American Eagle there at the front of the field?
Yeah, it was real hooked up. This track is so much of a driver's track, with it being so flat and with having so many different corners. It's almost like a road course, which is, kind of in my favor. I like to say that we have that mile magic, if you know what I mean. So every time we come to a 1 mile racetrack, I feel really confident.
Well, it was a fantastic run tonight and a very, very good points night for you as well. So who do you want to thank there?
Yeah, I just want to thank Dark Horse Racing and all the guys back there. Got them another win tonight, so that's good. Got to thank everybody in the league, and especially Cullen and Alec and Noah for everything that they do each week. It's always a blast. And to you guys for broadcasting.
Well, thank you much, sir. We appreciate it. There you go. J.W. Miller, your race winner here tonight. And I'll tell you what, Patrick, that was an absolutely spectacular show.
Yeah, that was impressive from all the drivers, especially right there at the end, those top 3. Really just duking it out. Some of these shorter tracks in IndyCar in the past have been described as trying to fly jet fighters in a gymnasium. And that is exactly what we saw here today. It is tight, it is hectic, it is very close. And for the most part, they all managed to keep it out of each other.
Yeah, it was impressive all the way around here throughout the Grid Rival ESRA IndyCar series. And coming up here in about 45 minutes or so, round number 1 of the Indy Pro 2000 official series, kicking off season 3 here in 2021. And they'll do it at Road America. The real world's going to visit there this weekend. The Indy Pro 2000 series will kick things off there tonight. But with that, we'll wrap up our coverage here from Phoenix Raceway. For Patrick Byrne and everybody here at the National Racing Network, my name's Chris Graham. It's been a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, everybody.